relations to water, agriculture, and environmental issues. He serves on various advisory panels to government agencies and industry in Pakistan on water, climate, and agricultural policy, especially on the use of emerging digital technologies for these sectors. Please, Dr. Abu Bakr.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. So before I actually begin, I just wanted to make a confession here that I am actually a fill-in speaker because we wanted to get a real agricultural expert to talk about this topic, and we thought that we would be able to get somebody. So I mean, again, with due apologies if I mislead you into anything, and I would also be eager to get any feedback on whatever that I'm presenting here. So the title of the talk is, again, we are talking now in the context of this particular project in which we are going to envision a low emission future for Pakistan. So we'll briefly look at what that exactly means. And when we were starting this project, immediately the first thing that came to our mind was what you just heard in the panel, that, okay, Pakistan is doesn't have a very large emissions portfolio, so why should we care? And I think the presentation will be somewhat of an argument about why we should care about this mitigation aspect still. I think a lot of what we do in adaptation is going to be an overlap with what mitigation measures are going to be, and especially in the agriculture sector. I will deliberately not talk about solutions now because we have the rest of the 2 days to really talk about solutions, and then we have many people here who will be talking about ideas. But I will just sort of set the stage of where we are. And also just to emphasize that the agriculture sector, for example, by itself, climate change or no climate change, by itself needs a transformation. So these are the 2 or 3 kind of broader objectives under which I'm giving this talk, and let's see where we can go from here. And like I said, this is an incomplete presentation in the sense that this is just setting the stage, and then we'll move on the conversation further towards solutions as well. Okay. So ये slide जरा थोड़ी सी देखिए, slide change जरा. Okay, all right. So just a recap, all right? So again, I'm pulling this data from Climate Watch. So this is Pakistan's emission profile. Again, the numbers need, if somebody has a dispute with numbers, there are a number of ways of doing these kind of accountings, but what we really need to understand here are really the trends, okay? And of course, I'm showing this data until 2020. If somebody has data, for example, until the last year as well, feel free to share with us later, but the overall observations do not change, which is that our total emissions, again, as in the last panel was pointed out, we are the world's 21st largest emitter with a total share of about 1%. So if you look at the total population, and because we had the data until 2020, population back then was 227.2 million. If you divide it by the total population of the world, so that's about 3%. So I mean, in a very nutshell, I mean, that's what the argument is. I mean, like, we are only 3% of the population, and although we are a large country, a very big footprint, we do come in the top 20, but still our share is very, very small. Okay, and then of course we can look at for comparisons with other countries, with the large polluters as well, and within the region, and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the inventories within the various sectors, again, I will keep sort of cautioning that there are various ways of doing these accountings, but just to get a ballpark idea of doing these back of envelope calculations of what is important and perhaps what is not. So agriculture and energy are the major sectors, okay? Now, how you actually include, for example, various industrial processes, land use, changes in forestry, again, was pointed out very, very rightly. I mean, you can include these things one way or the other, but nevertheless, in this particular scheme of things, as you can see here, that energy here is reported as 45%, so I'm sorry, 43%, and agriculture is a little bit more than that. In a slightly different way of accounting things, the energy is slightly more than agriculture, but nevertheless, these are the 2 main sectors. So this is why within this workshop, we will be focusing mostly on these 2, not to say that these other things are not important, but when we'll be looking at the nexus, they will be under the umbrella of these 2 major sectors. Okay. Can I have the slide change, please? Yes. Okay. All right. So per capita emissions, Again, a number of figures that you can again keep in mind. You can, I think we've already talked about this, so let me just sort of move on. Okay, just a reminder on the commitments. We are, of course, are signatory to the Paris Agreement. We did submit an NDC, which is nationally determined contributions, which are certain pledges that we have made formally as a country. Last time submitted in 2021, and the next one is coming up in 2025. So hopefully in a project like this and the conversations which are taking place, we will be able to do better than what we did last time in terms of stating the facts correctly. And then again, of course, coming up with the right measures as well. Please again keep in mind, a lot of other countries also have a long-term strategy. Again, during the course of the workshop, we will learn what that is. As opposed to the NDC, we do not have an LTS yet. And again, correct me if I'm mistaken here. Similarly, a lot of countries, they do have, they have confirmed that they're going to be net zero targets. Pakistan has not yet submitted that we'll have a net zero. Am I right there? If there is something going on in the ministry that I'm not aware of, all right. Okay. Also, because we are going to talk about agriculture a little bit, just keep in mind that we have also joined a kind of a global methane pledge as well. And this was launched in the COP26, more than 100 countries which agreed to cut down global methane emissions. And we'll shortly see why these are important. Now, this is a little bit of a summary of the last document that was submitted, the Pakistan's NDC. This is a summary. Again, there are figures here. These may be slightly different from the figures that I have shown there. Again, like I said, I mean, this is not what I'm not giving you accurate figures here. Just the ballpark figure of what the trends are and what the stated positions are. So in the official document, these are our emissions in 2018. The main climate action interventions which were given there were based on nature-based solutions and technology-based interventions. The flagship initiatives at that time, the 10 billion tree tsunami program, protected areas initiative, and Recharge Pakistan. So I think there was no living Indus at that time, but yes, please go ahead. Yes, so these are nature-based solutions. Yeah, so these are the. I am just copying directly from the document. Right now, I'm not doing any interpretation at all. This is all directly quoted from the document, okay? So these are the main climate action interventions. This is how they have bulleted it. Whoever authored the report, these are nature-based solutions, they're technology-based interventions, and the flagship initiatives are these. Just bear with me. Then another quote from the document, Pakistan intends to set a cumulative, ambitious conditional target of an overall 50% reduction of the projected emissions by 2030. Okay, so as the panelists were mentioning that this is ambitious, of course, but the voluntary is 15% that we are committing to do in any case. But then the rest of the 35% is subject to the provision of the finance, and this is what the whole sort of our national complaint about the dearth of funding is. This is again that little bit of a summary of where we were in 2016. According to this document, we were actually 8.7% less than what was projected in 2018. So somehow we did something spectacular. I'm just stating from whatever the document is saying. And then at that time, we also projected that by 2030, this is going to be our emission. And via these pledges, 15% and 35%, we are going to be this much. Okay, like I said, I'm just quoting directly from the document. To reach the target by 2030, again, the document says that Pakistan aims to shift to 60% of renewable energy. So that's written in there. Shift to 30% electrical vehicles, completely ban imported coal, expand nature-based solutions by implementation of, so there is your answer, the 10 billion tree tsunami project, the Recharge Pakistan, and the protected areas initiative. So then there are some figures about what good will these nature-based solutions or these forestry projects and this will do. Like I said, Pakistan has surpassed mitigation contributions and has taken climate change beyond the nationally determined contributions and took initiatives which contributed to a reduction of 8.7% of emissions between 2016 to 2018. So this is this blue figure there. Okay. Now, again, if you look at the same document, this is how the sectoral promises are stated there. We will talk about energy in other sessions. Of course, industrial processes are there and transportation. So let's actually zoom in on what it says about the agriculture. It says that it is the second highest emitting sector. I think the data that I showed you for 2020, it was slightly higher for agriculture, but nevertheless, this is the figure that has been quoted there. This is 2018. Then policy initiatives, which are mentioned there, they're Punjab's smog policy 2017, and then the climate change policy, Azad Jammu and Kashmir 2017. And the plans and targets, they include complete ban on open burning of rice stubble, solid waste, disposal of crop residues, and then some climate action plan. So I will just pause here just for a minute because we have gone through this PARC NDC. Is there an elephant in the room? I mean, those of you who, for example, are from the agriculture sector, and if you want to say something here, do you see anything missing here? Based on what the NDC document, the official NDC document states here, what the state of the affairs in agriculture and the various plans and targets that have been. So just so that I understand if the audience is aware of what is there and what perhaps may be missing. I think I saw a hand raised somewhere back. Everything okay there? I think this is good. As a policy document, okay. Yeah, so that national food security policy has also come up. So again, remember this is 2021, so maybe the national food security policy came at that time. But as far as the actions are concerned, the plans and targets, So we are talking about mitigation here. Yeah. So here we are talking about mitigation. So for these mitigation measures, the main interventions are open burning of rice, stubble. I mean, if that is listed there, so that means that perhaps this is the main culprit. Ji, Fazilda. Right. So exactly. And that is, like I'm saying, I'm not interpreting the document, but I'm just presenting how the document looks like that we submitted. This is the official document that was submitted in 2021. This is why the one that is going to go into 2025, hopefully, I think needs a lot of work. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not criticizing the authors of it. I think probably at that time, whatever that they had available, perhaps they put their best foot together. But as we will shortly see, even for the agriculture sector, I think those who understand agriculture a little bit, I think this is not just about banning open rice burning. So then what's missing? Okay, so let's take a look at what's there. Again, I also would like to present a couple of perspectives as well. Like for example, IMF, how it is seeing climate mitigation in Pakistan. Please forgive me, I'm not talking about adaptation at the moment. People will kill me for it, but if we are talking about mitigation, how the IMF sees us. So again, quoting from the IMF summary, we are a relatively small emitter, okay, acknowledged, but still we rank among the largest 20 GHG emitters worldwide in absolute terms because of the large population. And you also saw in the data, we are 21st on that ranking as well, so pretty close. Now, since 1990, our emissions have grown by over 160%, roughly below the MENA country average. Now, this MENA P actually is a very interesting combination in how IMF sees us. So they club us with Middle East, North Africa, and Pakistan. And I think this again is a very interesting and important perspective of how the IMF sees us. No, we chose to be okay. Sure, but this is how the clubbing is, and this is why the comparisons I'm now going to show within this document are as compared to this MENA region. Again, very interesting that we chose not to become part of the South Asia, but we really chose to be part of that club. The main sources are carbon dioxide in the energy sector and methane in the agriculture sector. So we'll shortly see some evidence of that. While mitigation is a focus of Pakistani authorities, they need to accelerate their efforts to keep their international GHG reduction commitments within reach. Fine. Pakistan sets an ambitious cumulative GHG reduction target of 50% below its. This is coming from that NDC document. And within the region, Pakistan ranks among the more ambitious countries. So I don't know if I have more data on what the other commitments are from countries in that region, but nevertheless, it is ambitious. Some of the key measures should include, so this is how, again, what IMF thinks that we should do. So we will not talk about solutions right now. Okay, now this is the region. Okay, so this is the total emission coming from this region. This is about 8% of the global GHG, and we are again 1%. This is again the region in which we have, like Aisha is mentioning, we have chosen to club ourselves. So many of them, they are actually oil importers, other are oil exporters. So again, just keep that in mind. So if we are comparing within that region, so the other two main polluters are Iran and Saudi Arabia, and this is Pakistan. And if you look at their sectoral contributions, what do you see for Pakistan? They're perhaps a little bit different from these other two countries. Agriculture. Okay. So again, the point of showing this here was that, okay, if we have clubbed ourselves here, then, and within the region, if we are one of the three main polluters, then for the two other countries, maybe this is not that much of an issue, but for us, this is quite significant. Okay, and for the rest of the world, counting the emerging and developing economies for the rest of the world, I mean, this again is the global average. Okay, now again, this is quoting from that IMF document. This is our, because the emissions are coming from carbon dioxide and methane. I will again show shortly what these absolute figures for these are. But within the carbon dioxide emissions, so this is a number of sectors here, but energy, transportation, and others are dominant. But within methane, of course, very understandably, it's basically this is the agriculture sector. So energy contribution to methane is relatively. And as a reminder, once again, that Pakistan has joined the global methane pledge launched at COP26 to cut this emission by 30%. Yes, so these are the pledges by other regions, and as the IMF document says, that we are ambitious as compared to others. Both are conditional and unconditional for others. They have been given here. Okay. Now, coming to the agriculture greenhouse emissions inventory, I am quoting a paper. This was published in 2021 by some colleagues in EASA. And again, how much time do I have? 5 more minutes? Oh my God. Okay, so then I'm really moving very, very slow. These are the emissions, total emissions in absolute numbers. Again, I've seen a couple of other papers as well. Their figures are slightly different, but this is a rough composition of what the various gases are within the agricultural emissions. And here is where you can now begin to see what's going on inside. So, for example, the crop residue burning that was mentioned in the NDC document, where do you see that? I apologize because the shades of gray here are a little bit difficult to, but is that significant? The crop residue burning. I cannot even see that here. Okay, and that's the thing which is mentioned in our NDC document. But the main contribution is actually this one: enteric fermentation, manure management, even rice cultivation. Yes, that's big. I'll show you the percentages just in a little bit as well. But they're not as big as livestock. So really, the story of agriculture and emissions is in Pakistan is about livestock. And here is another way of looking at it. So again, if you look at the contributions by various animals, you can see that this is really the bigger worry. No talk about it in the NDC document. So this is the agriculture sector, and if you look at just one particular year, the numbers here again. So enteric fermentation coming from the livestock. I mean, this is really, really big. Even manure management and others, they can be attributed to that. This is another way to present same data. This was done by a World Bank report, a very good one, but little outdated. But this visual actually just very clearly presents the contribution of the livestock sector as opposed to open field agriculture. Right. So I mean, this is what we need to worry about. Okay. Now, because I am going to run out of time very, very soon, I have a lot of ground to cover, but we have time to come back to it. Now, the stage that I want to set is that, first of all, let's understand that within Pakistan, I mean, agriculture is a main contributor. And within agriculture, we need to know where the most of the emissions are coming from. But very quickly, the agriculture is not just by itself, but it is really part of the bigger food system. Okay? And from that, again, that same World Bank document, if you look at the various indicators of what the food security situation and the malnutrition and other indicators related to the food system they are at a very dismal stage. So just to kind of imagine that a lot of these emissions are coming from livestock, and maybe we need to change our eating habits or whatever, maybe looking at the emissions which are coming from the various types of food, I think that will be a mistake to make that judgment immediately. So let's first take off where we are in terms of our socioeconomic condition. These emissions, they do not correctly reflect because, I mean, if the country really develops, these emissions are going to go even higher. And with the change of our lifestyle and eating habits, this is going to go even further. So as far as land usage is concerned, right now we are using about 47%. And again, if the trend continues and if prosperity keeps happening, most of this land use is going to come from meat products and livestock. And like I said, food and agriculture is together. Globally, it's not just about what is happening on the field. It's not just about what is happening with livestock and fisheries, but really the whole supply chain that needs to be accounted for in as well. And that by itself has its own footprint. Okay. Now, what footprint is that? Let's look at those numbers. Now I'm talking about the agriculture food system together. So again, I'm now comparing this for Pakistan versus some of the bigger polluters. So this is China. This is which one? This is the US. And Pakistan is, I think, somewhere here. I think the colors are not coming right. But you can read off some of these figures as well. So this is, again, the food and agriculture combined. This is according to the 5th IPCC report. As compared to other countries in the region. And finally, I just want to point out that agriculture is not just about emissions. So this visual that I'm showing here, this is taken from a recent article which has appeared in Nature Food that looks at the state of food systems worldwide. And it has developed these number of indicators to look at the health of an agriculture food system. And only some of them are related to emissions. So for example, emission intensity of rice and milk and emission intensity related to beef and cropland expansion. So these are all things that we talked about. But if you are talking about the agriculture system, agriculture food system by itself, other indicators, they are talking about the resilience of the value chains, livelihoods, of course, governance structures, and then very importantly, diet and nutrition too. I mean, it's not just enough to talk about what is happening on open fields only. So any interventions that we are going to talk about later on, we will need to keep all of these various indicators in mind. So this is not just going to be a transformation of the sector just to hit some of these targets. By the way, some of these bubbles, they are corresponding to income groups, so low income countries, lower middle income countries, upper middle income countries, high income, and we are actually lying somewhere here. And in a little bit of an expansion, we are in this panel, lower middle income, this is the global average, and we are here. So these are, the ranks are bad on the top and good on the bottom. So even in the lower middle income countries, we are above this average, based on all of these indicators that I showed you. So any transformation that needs to happen would need to take care of all of these things. Now, I think I've run out of time, so I will not talk about this, but what I just wanted to quickly mention was that if we talk about these feedback effects, of course, irrigation is another thing that we need to keep in mind that has a connection with GHG emissions. And just sort of closing, I think I'll leave this one for the next session. So just sort of to round with the key messages. And like I said, this is just a framing of the discussion. Now, agriculture sector is a major contributor. Methane and nitrous oxide are major portions of the inventory, most of which come from agriculture. most of these gases can be traced to livestock, manure, and managed soils. Food and agriculture are integrated systems. Okay, so it's not just you just don't just count whatever happens on the open field, but really as an integrated system. And if you are going to talk about the whole now agri-food system, then emission is not the only thing that you need to worry about, right? You also need to worry about, as those indicators said, about diets and nutrition, about governance issues, about livelihoods. These are again some of the indicators which were mentioned there: resilience, environment. And even within environment, we are talking about land pollution, we are talking about air pollution and all those sort of things. And that, of course, includes GHG emission. And the thing that I did not present, we will talk about it later on, that to do this transformation, we would need some really out-of-box solutions. So perhaps we'll leave that for a later session. So this is the end of my presentation, just in terms of underlining the importance of the agriculture sector for this particular project and for the particular workshop on how to go about it. So again, Talha, I don't know if you have time to take questions, or we should. Yes, okay. So I can answer any questions. Like I said, this is not my work. I'm just summarizing figures for you. But if you need any help with interpretation, I'm here, and perhaps we can even get help from experts in the room if you have any concerns or queries.
Dr. Saab, it's an eye-opener for me. Having worked in both regions, I worked good 24 years in North Africa and Middle East, really. And now I'm working in Bangkok, another region. And I think you very rightly pointed out that our alignment with this region, to begin with, really, it's totally out of, alignment, I will say. Why I say that, really, when I'm now working in Bangkok, where I see the problem there, they are focusing a lot on rice. Only at AIT, where I'm working with these days, they are really, donors are ready to invest 1.5 billion in rice. But here I think our focus still really on air pollution and all that, that only like 10% really at that time it highlights. Yeah, I think the alignment is to the region is not right. What they have identified as the problems are not really. So our basic documents are not really very well written in terms of where the problems are. Yeah. I just really support your really.
Thank you
for me.
छोटा सा एक पॉइंट शेयर करूँगा एक NED में एनर्जी की कॉन्फ्रेंस थी एशरे जो है एशरे के प्रेसिडेंट थे वहाँ पे और डॉक्टर सरोज जोशी वाइस चांसलर तो दोनों इस पे ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस पे बात कर रहे थे उन्होंने कहा बट कड़ाई खाना छाड़ दो तो तुम्हारा ग्रीन हाउस मसला
So thank you for that comment. Like I said, I did not talk about solutions, but if you think about global conversations, that is exactly the conversation which is happening. That we have to change our dietary habits to be able to mitigate this. And nobody is really talking about this here. By the way, there's going to be fantastic lunch today, so don't worry about that. Just for today. So, and please don't come back to the organizers that you are preaching against what you are. Okay, so thank you very much for the patience listening to the presentation. I think in the afternoon session we will resume this discussion. I think within this, and we will start to talk about solutions. And what I encourage you now is that with this data and this framing in mind, when we come back, let's now think about how can we do this agricultural sector transformation, not just for climate mitigation, because that's not going to happen just for it, but for other measures. Then perhaps there is a way to do both. At the same time. So I think over to now, Talha, are you going to present? So this is going to be a complementary presentation as well, where you're going to see some policy side of the agriculture sector, and hopefully more answers will be found there.
Thank you, Dr. Abubakar.